So we're at FutureNet World in London. I'm here with Dr. Hartmut Wittig. He is a VP at Magenta API, which is part of Deutsche Telekom. Thanks very much for taking the time to join us today. So can you just tell us about Magenta API? What is this part of Deutsche Telekom doing?
Yeah, so Magenta API consists of two parts. One is our team is called Magenta API because we are developing this market further. And approximately a kernel of 50 people in the Deutsche Telekom organization and plus 200 people which are collaborating very closely with each other. For example, folks from the T-Mobile US, folks from Telecom Europe, folks from Telekom Deutschland. And Magenta API stands for a very customer-oriented set of APIs where we try to do the next best thing and the new thing in the market, because we are a very strong believer of standard APIs, of exposing them, giving all developers and customers the power of telecommunication in their hands.
Okay. And where is Deutsche Telekom in this process of opening up its network APIs to enable developers to develop new applications?
Yes, so we are a very strong supporter and we are very strong key enabler of various standards. For example, in the Camara Alliance, in the GSMA, we are pushing extremely hard to get one standard because we are a strong believer. If you think about a global networking story we have to provide to our clients as telecommunication companies worldwide, we think the first thing which has to be done is the same standard format. Yeah. And this helps really the developers not to develop for the Deutsche Telekom customers only and the Vodafone customers only. And we are on the same page because we think on a global telecommunication market. And the better we are doing as telecommunication industry, the better is it for our customers and for the developers also. And I compare it always with, think about the hyperscalers, what they have done in store and compute. The same is possible to do it now with networking.
Okay. And so are there any early examples of services that have been developed from these standard APIs? Are you at that stage yet?
Yes, so there are very familiar examples in the communication APIs. So my best example is where since more than 20 years, that's the SMS. Right. Because many SMS will be sent around the world, and the key enabler is really, I send an SMS to my communication partner and he gets the answer back and forth. So the newest thing are our Magenta APIs in regard to mobile connect interfaces. So we see some killer apps because there is an enormous question of trust to do something. We see authentication, number identification, and that's one thing we have done to the market. We have opened it up because we think it's necessary to increase the security by having on the one hand side the data protection laws, yes, which often requires a consent of our B2C customers also. But it makes the online portals, the banking applications much safer than they are today. And the latest member of the club are the so-called 5G quality on demand APIs, where we use a specific feature in 5G, the quality reservation, or the experts are saying network slicing, to give some reservations and premium services to our clients. For example, think about media broadcasters. Today, very cost-intensive transmissions over the satellite. The same can be done by network reservations. We have done with many broadcasters already, for example, in Germany, but also in the US for certain events. Event is overcrowded, nobody gets bandwidth. That's something we can guarantee for a specific medium like 5G to the media broadcaster. Another killer example is really what we have done with the police in Germany, because even if the networks are congested, they have a guaranteed reservation that the policemen can communicate with each other, that the body cams can be monitored in real time. So these are some applications which are becoming more and more popular. And industry companies are asking us to get those services. The car industry is asking for those services because it really makes sense to get information a second before an accident instead of after, for example, to avoid it.
Okay. And these are all based on then standard APIs. And you mentioned the GSMA there before. How important is that, the GSMA Open Gateway Initiative, in terms of enabling this and helping more developers to understand what capabilities are available?
I've been a developer 20 years of my life. That's why I know from the other side also what I'm talking about. And a developer has always in mind a certain software, and normally the software is not constrained by a certain country or by a certain telecommunication company. He wants to have in their customer audience as many people as possible. And that's why it's very important from a technical point of view to have one standard. So, and this one standard enables them to program everything against one API. And we are convinced with our hearts that these standards in a technical sense are necessary to convince the developers, and based on the developers also the customers. And also the Open Gateway Initiative is one piece of that coin to get it more standardized. Will it end up in the standardization of a technical basis? I do not believe, because think about a developer having contracts with 700 telcos around the world to make this possible. I think a piece of that coin must also be commercial models, which are somehow also a key enabler, that not each and everybody has to contract 700 telcos.
So in terms of how Magenta API is developing, what are your routes to market? How are you engaging with the developers and the companies you want to reach? And who are those companies or developers? What are the target users for what you're doing?
Yeah, there are various types of initiatives we are running in our go-to-market. One is for sure to address the existing ecosystems, for example, together with Google, Microsoft, and AWS, because there are so many developer-friendly marketplaces and services behind that this is for sure one key market. Then another go-to-market is to help other telcos, which are not so big and not so staffed as we are, to enable this in their countries. That's another channel. Then we help aggregators to use those APIs, because we also believe in the aggregation to higher value services in layer 3, layer 4, making industry relevant examples and use cases and standards out of it. And then we have also a very good direct sales force. For example, in Germany, we have approximately 3,000 key account managers, which are belonging to 50,000 SMB, but also larger enterprises. And thereby we have a very direct and a very close relation to our big clients. And that's for sure a frontier approach we are running there. So in the car industry, we are setting up triads, we are testing APIs, we are commercializing that, because they don't want to, they want to have the APIs for testing only and for innovation only. They want to bring automatic driving to the market. They want to have drone use cases. They want to have, for example, scenarios where a fire department knows before coming into the fireplace what's happening there. Video surveillance scenarios are a certain type of application. But more simple things, for example, think about banking type of application, where you want to know, is it really the guy who is in front of me, or has the SIM swapped and has the mobile phone hijacked before? That's really helps saving much money for the banks, because if you do not have such mechanisms, the fraud is increasing at any point in time.
Okay. And in terms of these direct relationships, I'm sure those are probably the optimum ones for Magenta API. How involved is your Magenta API team in the process of working with that direct sales team? Because they need to understand what you're doing. They need to be able to communicate it to the enterprises. How tricky is that? Or is that, do they all get it?
So it's really hard daily work. Because of that, I have to leave tomorrow, because I have tomorrow my next 4 or 5 customer meetings. But it's a very direct response to what we are doing in the Magenta API arena. And we are knowing so much better when what is the pain point of a customer, what is the challenges, how to address and transform it not only into our APIs, they are also extremely helping us in our roadmap. So what comes next, because you might know Camara has now published over 50 APIs, and the next best API to be implemented is in our organization always driven in a mixture of what is our own capability to expose on the one hand side. On the other hand side, the customer is saying which demand he has for certain APIs. So,
right. Okay.
And always based on standards. So that's one paradigm or mantra, I would say, to do it based on standard means that not only the Deutsche Telekom and their customers are in the game, but also all competition partners, as for example Telefonica and the others. And it's, for me, it's an activity for market development and business development, similar to in the IT arena the hyperscalers are doing.
So do you think that the understanding of the opportunities is that people are grasping this quite quickly and understanding the opportunities and able to communicate that? Is this happening quite quickly?
I think so. From time to time, we have some challenges. For example, in the US, we are the first having a standard architecture for 5G. In Germany, this is coming now approximately in October.
Right.
And that helps very much because the bandwidth is growing. And as we have no more bandwidth, more reservations can be done without suppressing public customers, for example. So that's one key enabler we have in mind. On the other hand side, from the customer side, we see use cases which have the potential to explode. Think about our tests we are doing with the car industry. So we have 20 million cars on the road. So the complexity is not to have one test and the next test. So the car industry, and especially in automated driving, is very close to go to the market. And to do so, you at least have to have a video camera. And for example, if you think about cranes or cars and lorries, you need to have the ability to hook on the current video stream to see what's happening there, for example. It's not completely autonomous, as in other countries, but at least in Germany, it will be a hybrid mode of operation. But for sure, not for the next 10 years when a driver is in the car who can could use an interrupt and take over the control. We hope that this will be done by video over the network, and that's also one target we have.
Wow, so a lot of learning going on here with the different opportunities. Now, of course, at the end of the day, nobody is doing this just for fun or because they can. This is about growing business relationships and driving revenues and making money. So who in this ecosystem is going to be able to generate profitable revenues from the exposure of network APIs?
So my thinking is that on the one hand side, we have invested a two-digit billion number in 5G. And the return, and I'm sure that other telcos are feeling similar. The return does not come really over 5G campus networks. And even from the B2C business, we do not notice any increase of data rates or any data prices. And even the IoT sector is not bringing that money back. So on the other hand side, we see a tremendous need for premium services and premium bandwidth and delay services in the technical sense that all of a sudden brings also new application types and new types of quality into premium services. You can compare it with a video stream, for example, which can be interrupted. But if your life is depending on that, I pay a premium service. And by doing such offers and by providing API, which means that you can use a much finer granularity than all or nothing, we see a commercial chain to use it. And for example, in the 5G arena, it is really from the beginning now the video transportation, and not only download videos, but also upload. It's all about instant software replications to the car, for example. It's not the best idea to upgrade the car by driving. On the other hand side, it's also not the best idea to go with every car to the service stations. They will explode somehow. Right. And there are many, many services where we see a commercial interest of our clients. And yeah, is it 100% clear how to commercialize it? Somehow customer driven on the one hand side, but also driven from our network capabilities. And yeah, we are somehow on the move, but I can promise you that we have approximately, personally since January, I have 100 customer meetings, which I did. And there's a huge interest in both the quality on demand stuff, also in the Magenta interfaces with regard to mobile connect interfaces, more from the authentication side, but also the old business of RCS, for example, and SMS remains intact because the more bigger companies are moving out of it and moving over to RCS, because in iOS 18 we expect that this will be also part of the Apple ecosystem. Yeah. The more this happens, many SMB companies are trying to get it done. For example, calendaring. If you have a date with your doctor, it's usual right now to get an acceptance, to get feedback, questionnaires, and so on. And yeah, and even that old stuff is moving forward and is getting a revival now.
And so, if I understand correctly, it's still kind of being figured out. You know, if you're engaging with the application developers, you know, through the hyperscalers, that it's still being figured out. Well, who's going to make the share of the revenues from the resulting service? Are things still flexible there? It's still being figured out, is it?
Yeah, so I personally expect half-half. The majority of our key customer applications will come from a direct approach from a B2B customers, and the other half is for sure the developers out of the ecosystem. As soon as we have more standard APIs, as soon as we have standard business models, which appeared more attractive than one by one, we expect a very high acceptance also from the developer side. Okay. So.
Excellent. Well, Hartmut, great to hear about Magenta API, and great to see a specific, you know, a unit within a large network operator focusing on this and helping to develop. So great to hear your story, and thanks very much for joining us today.
Thank you very much, and it was a pleasure to meet you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Hartmut. Thank you.